Tomorrow is Krishna's birthday. The origin story happens in the first Manvantara. So this is Swayambhuva Manu. Lord Brahma's life is broken up into 14 Manvantaras. We are halfway through Brahma's life, which takes trillions of years. And so this happened really toward the beginning of Brahma's life, the origin story of Krishna. But we'll get into that in a minute. In Dwapara Yuga, which was approximately 5,000 years ago, there was a time where, probably very much like today, where the earth was burdened by, it was said, the unnecessary defense force of demoniac leaders. Well, that's a lot to unpack. The unnecessary defense force. I imagine this is a build-up of arms, and also these malignant leaders, they were causing disturbance, and it was causing pain to the people, and it also was causing pain to Bhumi, who is the personification deity of the earth. Bhumi decided to go to Lord Brahma and ask if Vishnu could come incarnate. She went to Lord Brahma and she assumed the form of a cow, and she shared about the sort of calamitous situation on earth, and she prayed to Brahma and the other Devas if they could ask Vishnu if Vishnu would incarnate. So they went to what's called Sweta Dweepa and the ocean of milk. Sweta Dweepa is a very interesting place. It exists in the material world, but it's considered the spiritual world. And it's actually described as not so much being a place as it is being a portal into the spiritual world. For saints and sages to be talking about portals into the spiritual world is really very cool stuff, yeah. So, and when the material universes, they are all part of the inhale and the exhalation of Mahavishnu. So when the material universes dissolve, this Sweta Dweep remains. So it's not a place here, as we said, it's a portal. So this is where Vishnu resides in the material world. And which kind of brings me to a little subsection, which I like to call, who's that Vishnu? And Vishnu is a term for God, that person who is everywhere. So it's kind of talking about the omnipresent, omniscient quality of God, and also especially God as Paramatma, in the super soul in everyone's heart. Vishnu can be broken into three categories. There is Vishnu as Mahavishnu, and this Mahavishnu is the Vishnu who reclines in the spiritual world, and from Vishnu's pores, as he inhales, all the universes are attracted into his body, and as he exhales, all the universes manifest. Now, Vishnu enters each universal cell. So of the innumerable cells, he enters each one of those cells as Garbhodakashayi Vishnu. And Garbhodakashayi Vishnu lays in he lays in his own perspiration. And it's about half, sort of half deep, so it kind of goes up to half his body. And then in his navel is a lake. And from that navel springs a stem, a lotus stem, and from that lotus flower, Brahma is born. And it's said that the 14 worlds are contained in that lotus stem. So the 14 worlds of that material universe, which is presided over by that particular Brahma, of all the innumerable other universes. Then Vishnu enters that universe as Kshirodakashayi Vishnu, and this is the Vishnu that is in our hearts. And that is the Vishnu that we think of when we think of the trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. That is Kshirodakashayi Vishnu. And any incarnation, Vishnu incarnation, comes from Kshirodakashayi Vishnu through Svetadweep, through this spiritual portal in the material world. So the Devas and Brahma came to the shore of the great milk ocean where Kshirodakashayi Vishnu resides. And actually, the Devas and Brahma and Bhumi, nobody gets to see this Vishnu. The way they communicate is they communicate through a set of prayers, and the main prayer they recite is Purusha Sukta prayer. And then they ask what it is they need to ask of Vishnu. And Vishnu replies in such a way that only Brahma in meditation can hear what Vishnu is replying. They prayed to Vishnu, asked Vishnu would he consider appearing to help Mother Bhumi, and at first there was no response, and then Brahma entered deep meditation, and within his meditation he heard Vishnu's response, which is, yes, I shall descend in my original form. I will descend in my original form and take birth in the Yadu dynasty. But I request all the Devas, all the demigods, to also take birth either in the Yadu dynasty or in the friends of the Yadu dynasty. And in that way, I want all the Devas to be present to assist in this pastime. With that, Bhumi was satisfied, and they awaited the coming of Vishnu. So now we cut to, meanwhile, down on earth, we have a Raja, Shurasena, and he is the chief of Mathura. So Mathura is, when we think of India now as one country, but think of it back then as being, it was considered most of the earth, and all these states were countries. So there is an area in India where there is a city called Mathura. That used to be a large area called the country of Mathura, and the city of Mathura was the capital. Raja Shurasena was the chief of that area, and his son was named Vasudeva. And Vasudeva was very highly considered, considered very truthful, a person of his word. Vasudeva had just married Devaki, who was considered either the sister of or the cousin of Kamsa. Kamsa was the son of Ugrasena, who was the Raja of the Bhoj dynasty, which is modern-day Bihar. So the Bhoj dynasty was also very powerful. And Kamsa in particular was a very, very materialistic, very greedy, always wanting more and more power. But, his family was Devaki. And it's kind of traditional for the brother to steer the chariot after a wedding ceremony of his sister or his cousin. Kamsa was leading this chariot with Vasudeva and Devaki in the back. And, it was quite a festive occasion, lots of kettle drums and trumpets and people throwing flowers, and it's very festive. But then all of a sudden, a sort of a tumultuous voice comes from the sky and says, "Kamsa, you fool! Here you are driving the chariot of your sister Devaki. But you don't know her 8th child will be the death of you." Without thinking twice, Kamsa, pulls the chariot up, turns around, grabs Devaki by her hair, and he's literally about to kill her. But Vasudeva jumps in front. He's like, hey, wait. What are you doing? You can't do this. I mean, this, and his mind is like, what can I say to this megalomaniac to stop him? So he sort of starts negotiating, he tries flattery, he tries many different things. First of all, he says, hey, first of all, who is that voice? We don't know who that voice is. We don't know if it's real. Exactly. You have a reputation. I mean, you are well known. I mean, Kamsa, everybody looks up to you. You can't be known as the guy who kills his family member as he's on her auspicious day of her wedding. And look, who knows? I don't know if Devaki and I are even going to have kids. And if we have kids, I don't even know if I'm going to have a son. And he even tried philosophy with Kamsa. He was like, look, I mean, what is death? Hey, we're all live, we all die. I mean, if you're 25 years old, that means you're 25 years dead already, you know. But he tried all these different things and he could not appease Kamsa. And then finally he said, hey, he thought to himself, my priority here is to save Devaki. There's no point trying to save some unborn child that may or may not exist. Let me just save Devaki. And so in the end, he said, look, I don't know if we're going to have children, but if we do, I will deliver every son to you and you can do whatever you want with that child. Just let your sister live. Let's see how this plays out. And Kamsa, knowing Vasudeva to be very famous for keeping his word, to being a man of truth, he thought, yeah, it is a bit of a bad look. Everybody's here. Everyone can see. I don't want to get a reputation as killing Devaki, what to speak of on her wedding day, such an auspicious day. I trust you. I trust that you will bring these children to me and then I can get rid of them on the sly without everybody knowing. They kind of pacified the situation. Ultimately, Vasudeva and Devaki went to their marital home, and in due course, Devaki gave birth to a son. Incredibly heavy-hearted, nevertheless, Vasudeva had to keep his word, and he took the child to Kamsa. And Kamsa was quite surprised, even though he knew Vasudeva was a person of his word, still, wow, it's pretty bold bringing your child to me, knowing that I'm going to kill your child. So this kind of, in a way, fostered some benevolence, and Kamsa felt a little big, and he said, oh, here's the thing. The prophecy said it's the 8th child. The 8th child will be a boy, so I appreciate that you're a person of your word. You brought the child here, but my quarrel is not with your first child. My quarrel is with your 8th child. Take your child home, be well. And so Vasudeva left. But still he wasn't sure because he knows that Kamsa, he's a chanchala. He's flickering like a candle flame. He can get angry any second and the deal's off. After this time, that transcendental sage, Narada Muni, appeared, the one who, whenever Narada comes, Vishnu is not long thereafter. So Narada Muni came to Kamsa and he said, Kamsa, it's very big of you to let Vasudeva go, but I need to tell you something. Right now, and it's been going on for a while, all the Devas are taking birth currently, both in the Yadu Dynasty, the Andaka Dynasty, in the Boj Dynasty, all across the land. The demigods are taking birth and they're all preparing for Vishnu to arrive. So I just kind of letting you know. And with that, he disappeared. And we might wonder, my gosh, isn't Narada Muni on our side? Why would he do that? But Narada Muni reasoned he's trying to hurry the coming of Vishnu, quicken the storyline, And so with this, Kamsa got Devaki and Vasudeva and threw them into prison, threw them into, the tower, as it were, or the dungeon, shackled them, and actually killed their child. In due course, over the next ensuing months and years, Devaki gave birth to 5 more sons, so a total of 6 so far. And each time Kamsa took them and killed them immediately. And this sounds like just a horrible fairy tale, but when we think back to European history and every Shakespearean play there has ever been, and not European as well, English, it's full of family members bumping each other off to ensure their own lineage. There is this channel on YouTube, I think it's called Vice something, and people wear a mask and they interview them and they'll say what it's like to be a moderator on Facebook. And then there was this interview recently about somebody who works on super yachts, and he was saying the atrocities he sees on those yachts because they're out in the waters, they're beyond any law, right? This glimpse into the world of the mega powerful, the mega wealthy. They think they're beyond reproach and they think they're invincible because they've been born with wealth, fame, beauty, power. Hey, no one can touch me. Kamsa was such a person. He was such a horrible person. Mary didn't get called Bloody Mary for nothing. Henry VIII didn't get 8 wives because they all happily left him, And certainly Shakespeare had enough material to write his fictional plays. It's the underbelly. When Devaki was pregnant with her 7th child, she could feel the presence of Vishnu within her. And she was happy, but she was also sad because she knew that Kamsa would kill this child. Fortunately for her and Vasudeva, Yogamaya appeared before them. Yogamaya is considered the Shakti potency of God. There is the powerful and then there's the power. So sometimes we talk about Radharani being the Shakti potency or the goddess potency. These two things that we consider one, in a spiritual sense, they're defined unto their own. And so this Yogamaya is considered the illusionary potency. She's also considered to be Durga, Narayani, Ambika, Subhadra. She is this goddess potency, Devi, Krishna. She has so many names. And she appeared before them and she said, I've been instructed to transport your child in your womb into the womb of Mother Rohini, who is currently in Braj. Rohini is also a wife of Vasudeva. It was considered to do this so as to save the child. And she said, because this child is Ananta, this child has all spiritual strength. So he is Bala. And his spiritual strength allows us to achieve all spiritual bliss or Ramana. So he will be known as Balarama. And he always comes before Krishna. Balaram always comes before Krishna. And so Devaki's child was infused, if you like, into the womb of Mother Rohini, who was one of the Yadus who were in hiding from Kamsa. And these Yadus, they were taking shelter in the Kuru states, in the Koshala states. They were hiding in caves. They were all spread out to be more safe. And Rohini then gave birth to this child who would be named Balaram and who would be the elder brother of Krishna. In the dungeon, however, it was considered that Devaki miscarried her 7th child. So Kamsa had no problem with the 7th child because it miscarried. Little did he know that it was spiritually transported to Mother Rohini. Then again, at this time, Vishnu appeared before Devaki and Vasudeva in the dungeon, and Vishnu said, I will now appear and become your son. I am choosing to appear now in my 4-armed form because if you just give birth to me as a little baby, you won't believe it's me. So I'm showing you my 4-armed form so you understand. And Vasudeva, said many prayers, and Devaki also said many prayers. And she said, I know you're God, but still I'm so frightened for you because Kamsa will kill you as soon as he knows you're here. And the 4-armed form said, you don't need to worry. I've arranged with Yogamaya. She is my sister and she is due to take birth as the daughter of Yasoda and Nanda, but I have arranged that she and I will switch places, and Mother Yasoda will think she's given birth to a boy, and Kamsa will think you've given birth to a girl. And with this four-armed form entered the mind of Vasudeva, and then entered the mind of Mother Devaki, and then entered her womb. And the scriptures they go to extra length to let us know that this was not seminal injection. Like, they go out of their way to say it was born through the mind of Vasudeva and Devaki. Oh, but prior to that, actually, they did say, this is so wonderful, but why would you choose us? Why us, And Vishnu said, you've forgotten, but many, many, many moons ago, in the first Manvantara, in the Swayambhuva Manu era, the first Manvantara, the beginning with Lord Brahma, he had progenitors who were populating the earth. And they're populating the bodies, but the souls are the souls that have the unfinished contracts from the previous manifestation, which was annihilated and now is being remanifested. So there are progenitors who help populate the earth. And two progenitors were Prishni and Sutapa and Prishni, and this couple were so pious and they were so selfless in their service, and they endured so much austerity. It said they endured the austerity of all the seasons, and they even only ate leaves that fell to the forest floor. And Vishnu, being so pleased with them, to give them a benediction, and they asked, would you become our son? And so he agreed, and he said, 3 times I've taken birth as your son. The first time was when you were Prishni and Sutapa. I took birth as your son Prishnigarbha. And then the second time, when you were known as Aditi and Kasyapa, I took birth as Upendra. And now, as the third time, I'm taking birth of you, Devaki and Vasudev, as Krishna. But after this service, your service is now done. You both go back to Godhead. This is your last material birth. And with that, then Vishnu entered the mind of Vasudev, and then entered the mind of Devaki, and then entered her womb. Kamsa realized Vishnu must be inside of her because she was effulgent, like a jewel. But it's interesting to know, even he had a bottom line. He thought best not to kill a pregnant woman, because really that is possibly the lowest of the low, is to kill a mother and a child. It's bad enough to kill the child, but to kill the mother and the child. And he thought, I'll just wait until this child is born and then I'll kill it. On the night that it's all going down, Vasudeva was also told that I will arrange with Yogamaya to put the entire kingdom to sleep. And I will release your shackles. She will release your shackles. And with that, I ask you to go carry me as your child and switch with Mother Yasoda. And so when Devaki gave birth, the entire kingdom fell asleep. And the shackles undid themselves, and Vasudev took the child, and it was raining very heavily. He took the child, he walked out of the dungeon. All the gatekeepers were there asleep, sort of drugged. And he left the castle, went out and needed to cross the Yamuna. And the Yamuna was raging, and the Yamuna just kind of parted to let him go. And Anantashesha, the hooded serpent, came above Vasudev to protect him and Krishna. So he went to the house of Nanda and Yasoda, and Mother Yasoda had just given birth, and he took the young girl and placed Krishna there in her place, went back to the jail, placed the baby with Devaki, the young girl, and reapplied the shackles, and then the kingdom started waking up. And of course they heard the child crying, so they called Kamsa and said, the baby's born, the baby's born. So Kamsa comes in like ready to kill the baby. And Devaki says, wait, brother Kamsa, the prophecy was that it would be a boy, but it's a girl. You know, you've killed all my children. Let me keep this girl. You're not meant to be killed by a girl. But Kamsa was so demoniac, he didn't care. He thought, I can't take any chances. So he grabbed the baby, and it's so heavy. He grabbed the baby and went to slam it against the stone. But before he could do that, the child slipped from his hand, went up into the sky and manifested 8 arms and showed herself to be Durga, and said, Kamsa, the child that you're seeking has already taken birth somewhere in this world. You're a fool if you think that you can outsmart Providence. You should apologize to your sister for all the heinous things that you've done, killing all her children. You should beg her forgiveness. And Durga's quite ferocious, you know, so this did elicit a response from Kamsa, and he realized, I've been mad with power. Yes, I mean, how could I do this to my sister? How could I kill all these children? How could I imprison, you know, my sister and my brother-in-law? And he felt quite lamentations and realized his kind of small position in the universe, albeit momentarily. And he released Devaki and Vasudeva and begged their forgiveness. The next day, he informed all his counselors and all his alliances of what happened, and they were like, no, Kamsa. No, I hear that you've got a change of heart, but no, now is the time to strike. We have to strike while Vishnu is a child and before all the Devas can become empowered knowing that Vishnu has arrived. We need to strike, and we need to strike now. Here's the thing. They might have Shiva and Vishnu on their side and Brahma, but let's face it. Vishnu is hiding out in everyone's heart. Shiva's renounced. He's off in a cave somewhere. Brahma is always deep in meditation and penance. Indra, you are way more powerful than Indra. And as for the rest of the Devas, we can beat them anytime, but we cannot risk them becoming strong. We must strike now. And so with this began the great persecution of all the Yadus. And so when we hear about the stories of Krishna with this demon and that demon, it is all these people coming for him. They're quite advanced yogis, but they're very materialistic. So they've used their power to promote their own agenda. Meanwhile, oblivious, in Braj, Mother Yasoda wakes and thinks, oh, I guess I had a boy. You know? And of course they think he's absolutely beautiful. Nanda Maharaj and Yasoda throw a big festival for their child. When I say festival, they invite all the brahmanas who come chant mantras. They give dakshina of, 200,000 cows and mountains of grain to the brahmanas for the cows, and they have the astrologer do the astrology for the child, and they do all the things that one does when in a Vedic culture when you have a child. And Mother Rohini was able to attend the ceremony of Krishna's birth party, but Vasudeva and Devaki couldn't. Nor would they want to. They needed to keep distance because they were the only ones that knew that Krishna is their child. There was a lot of hankering, of course, but it wasn't until Nanda Maharaj had to visit Mathura to pay some taxes that Vasudeva was able to kind of meet up with him and say, oh, I heard you had a child. How is he? Congratulations. And in that way, he was able to get news of Krishna and how he is, but still keeping it on the down low. And after his meeting with Nanda Maharaj, he even said, you really need to go back to Braj immediately. I hear there is some trouble brewing there, because Vasudev knew that it was only a matter of time before the kind of evil powers start trying to attack Krishna. Thus is the story of Krishna's birth, and it lays the foundation because the allies of Kamsa were the Raja of Agasura. There was Bakasura, there was Denakasura. There's all these names of the demons that we'll later on hear about in the later chapters of how Krishna vanquishes each and every one of these. But it's interesting to know that they were in alliance with Kamsa of the Boj dynasty. And now we start to see kind of the mob coming for Krishna, Yeah, we're going to make him sleep with the fishes, see? Yeah. It's a novella. He is born on the 8th day of the waning moon, but the Yadu dynasty is considered the moon dynasty. So even though it was on the waning moon for his birth, it was considered that the constellations rearranged themselves to be very auspicious, and the moon appeared with its majesty because Krishna is the jewel of the Yadu dynasty, and the Yadu dynasty is the lunar dynasty, as opposed to Ramachandra, who was part of the solar dynasty. It's not that we are influenced by the planets, it's that a particular influence correlates to a particular position of the planets, because it's all about gravitational pull. And interestingly, Krishna's brother, Balarama, is considered to be the potency, the gravity, which holds all the planets in their orbits. Balaram is known as spiritual power, but also the material power that holds all the planets in their orbits. And Balaram also signifies the guru or the spiritual master. So with your blessing, I'd love us to sing the song again.